I'm going to take you into my gear room here and close the door so the dogs aren't too noisy. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. In this video, I'm going to take some time and go over my first aid kit. Excuse me? Yes? May I help you? In this video, Jaffe is going to explain what items we take in our first aid kit and why. Are you camera shy? Thank you for your help. Thank you. Thank you. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Love Dogs channel. In this video, I am going to go over the first aid kit that I take on the Colorado Trail. I've been backpacking this trail in segments. This will be my 6th year. I've been doing it with dogs as well, and so some of my first aid kit is applicable to the dogs as well as myself. I have a lot of stuff here, so this is basically my entire home first aid bag. And I've laid out on the table here the items that I have in the past packed in my first aid kit for the trail and that I currently pack in my first aid kit for the Colorado Trail. And so I'm going to go over this, and I'm just going to tell you what I don't bring anymore and why, and what I've decided to keep and why. So I'll start by sharing what kinds of medication I typically bring and what I use it for. And I will say that before this year, in the past, I usually would just take all of these pills and dump them in one Ziploc baggie, and then on the outside of the Ziploc baggie, I would write in marker the color of each pill, what it was, what the dosage was, and all of that. I'm changing things up this year. I'm putting each of the separate medications in its own little pill bag. I picked these up at Walgreens, as you can see. I hate that I'm using more plastic again, but I do think that it's probably safer to put medication in individual bags so that you don't accidentally mix them up and take the wrong thing. And so this year I have separate baggies for everything, and then what I'll do is I'll put all these baggies in my op sack. I do keep my first aid kit in an op sack. That's an odor-proof zip top bag. It's a little bit tougher kind of plastic, and it is on the box it technically says odor resistant, but this is typically what backpackers use to keep the smell of items contained and keep bears and wildlife away. So this is vitamin C and zinc. I take one of those daily just to stay healthy. When you're backpacking, especially up in the mountains, you're really exerting yourself, and so it really wears you down pretty quickly. And so I like to take the vitamin C and zinc just to keep my immune system up and to hopefully keep me from getting sick out there. So and then I have the usual Tylenol and Advil. Tylenol is best for headaches, neck aches, things like that, and Advil is good for cramps and things like that. So over here we have Benadryl. This is something that the dogs and I can share, and actually I pack a lot of Benadryl, mostly for the dogs, because both of the dogs I have now are very sensitive to things like grass and all of that. And of course they're dogs, so they roll around in grass all the time out there. Last season, the most used piece of my first aid kit was Benadryl for the dogs. I'll add, Benadryl, the reason I hardly take Benadryl is because it does make you drowsy. Now, it doesn't seem to have that effect on the dogs, but on me it does. And so I usually avoid taking Benadryl for allergy type stuff. I would take it, you know, if I got stung by a bee or something like that, something more serious that I needed an antihistamine for. But otherwise, I'll avoid the Benadryl, and this is mostly for the dogs. I take non-drowsy Allegra. And this is new to my first aid kit this year, actually, because I have never had allergy issues until this season. I've just been sneezing. I go out for a run in the morning, and I come back, and I'm sneezing, and watery eyes, burning eyes, the whole rest of the day. And that's new for me. I've never experienced that before. So I picked up some Allegra. Allergies do run in my family. My grandmother had them horribly bad, and my dad also has them. So it seems like it's hereditary and that I'm probably headed that direction. So I picked up Allegra because that's what my dad swears by, and it's non-drowsy. By the way, on these little pill packets, I put on here the dosage. So Allegra is 1 every 24 hours, and I've put 1 in there. I don't anticipate that I would need to use this every day, so I put 5 in there, which, you know, that'd be enough to take 1 every day for half the trip. So again, I don't anticipate that I'll need this every day, so I didn't pack 1 for every day. And then I've got the Pepto tablets and Tums. So I hate Pepto-Bismol, so I probably will never use these, but if I had to, I've got 2 tablets in here. And I hardly ever need to take Tums when I'm on the trail, but that's just in case. So antacid and antidiarrheal. And then up here, I've got Mucinex DM. Back around the time when I was first diagnosed with asthma, I actually had kind of chronic bronchitis for a while there. And so I started getting these Mucinex tablets to take backpacking. This is an antibiotic. It's cephalexin. This is Diamox, which is for altitude sickness. Ever since I was diagnosed with asthma, I have been unable to climb to 14,000 feet without getting altitude sickness. So I got a prescription for this, and I take this with me now anytime I'm going to be anywhere near 14,000 feet, which this stretch of trail that I'm going to be doing this season does hit the high point of the CT, which I want to say is 13.5, somewhere around there. I'll have to double check. I can put it on the video screen, but it's inching ever closer to 14K, and so I'm gonna pack this just in case. I actually hate Diamox because it makes you feel really tingly in the extremities, and that drives me nuts. So when I do take it, you can take it one tablet every 8 hours, but when I feel like I have to take it, usually there's a line in it, which makes it very easy to cut, and I'll take half a tablet instead of a whole one, because when I take a whole one, I just feel tingly and I don't like it. So anyway, but I do take it just in case, because I'd rather feel tingly than unable to go on. This is ginger. This is crystallized ginger. I use this, or, you know, I used to use peppermint tea. This year I'm going to use this because I'm trying to avoid things that require water. Even though this makes you really thirsty when you eat it. But I'm taking this crystallized ginger this year as a stomach ache remedy, nausea remedy, instead of taking peppermint tea, which is my usual go-to. But I'm not going to put it in my actual first aid kit. I'm going to keep it with my food instead. Last thing in my pill bag is for the dogs only, and this is carprofen, which is a pain med for the dogs. So next up is wound care, and keep in mind that this is primarily for superficial wounds. If there's something that's deeper and more serious, then, you know, I am taking gauze. I have the 4-inch by 4-inch gauze patches, and I have a roll of gauze with tape. But, and I have the steri strips, but essentially what you're trying to do is just make do until you can get to emergency personnel. As I said, I've got these 4-inch by 4-inch gauze pads. I take 2 of those, and then I take the roll of gauze. And then as far as tape goes, I have this athletic tape, which is stickier and a little bit stiffer. And then I have this soft cloth tape. These little popsicle stick things, these are for basically an improvised splint if I broke a finger or a toe. And then I carry 2 each of these different types of Band-Aids, so this is more than enough. And again, you know, this is precaution. I hardly ever use this stuff, and a lot of times the same stuff sits in my first aid kit for a very long time. And I have to watch it occasionally because some of this stuff does need to be swapped out. The Band-Aids, if you leave them in heat, you know, the adhesive will actually start to melt and they get greasy and gooey. So you do have to check this stuff. And of course, medications expire, so you want to watch that as well. So Band-Aids, I have a couple of these, a couple of these, you know, basically finger or toe wraparounds, and then a couple of regular Band-Aids, and then a couple of waterproof Band-Aids. And that takes care of the Band-Aids. I shouldn't probably need any more than that, but you know, if I cut myself at the beginning of the trip, then at least I'm covered for the whole trip, and I'm not gonna have to worry about a cut getting infected or something like that. I can keep it covered. And then over here I have antibiotic packets. You know, this again is stuff that I don't use very often. Typically I'll only take 2 packets if I'm only going to be out there for like a week or something. But on this upcoming 2-week trip, I might take 4 packets. I'm not sure yet. You know, you hope nothing is ever going to happen, but you know, you can cut yourself pretty easily out there, and you don't want something to get infected and become a worse situation than what it needs to be. This is made by Green Goo, and I have used it for years on the dogs. For cuts on the paw pads, for cuts on their skin, any kind of superficial wound. I basically roll this over it, and it's significantly better the next day. I don't have it out here on the table, but I also use musher's wax on the dog's paws. Maybe I'll do a separate first aid video about dog care, but I will just say that I don't use booties for my dogs because dogs regulate their temperature primarily through their paw pads. And if those pads are covered with something that's not particularly breathable, then it makes it more difficult for them to regulate their temperature, and they can overheat very quickly. I actually had that happen with the dog once. I have not used them since that incident because it kind of freaked me out, and I don't want to risk it. So instead of using booties, I use musher's wax. And of course, musher's wax has been used in the mushing community for many, many, many years. It is very effective. If you look at Green Goo's other items, a few of them actually have the same exact ingredients, but they're labeled different things. This first aid stick actually has the same ingredients as their pet stick. So I ended up just grabbing a couple of these, and I use them for both myself and the dogs. I do bring a few of these antiseptic wipes. Usually I only bring a couple, but for a 2-week trip I'll probably bring at least 4. And to wrap things up here, I take a chapstick, and I usually will stick a couple of these Metalite emergency heat recovery tablets in here. These are good for dehydration, or if you overheat and you need to replenish your electrolytes very quickly. These work really well and very fast. So I usually will stick a couple of those in my first aid kit just in case. And then duct tape, these little mini rolls. I think I mentioned in a previous video that you can get these at minimus.biz. They actually come just like this in these little bitty mini rolls. They come in really handy for a lot of things. You can fix just about anything with duct tape. So yeah, this is more for like tent repairs, gear repairs, and things like that. And then I have a Swiss Army knife that has the scissors, it has tweezers, it has toenail clippers, the knife of course, and then it has a toothpick and a fingernail file. What else? What am I missing? Yeah, but primarily the scissors are good for cutting the tape and stuff like that, cutting packaging if there's any that I can't tear open or that I haven't already removed. The toenail clippers come in handy because if you don't keep your toenails trimmed, that is the best way to lose your nails when you're backpacking. And tweezers, yeah. There's not much of a tick issue on the Colorado Trail, especially at high elevation, but you also could use them to remove splinters or remove anything else that has become lodged in your skin or in the dog's, you know, whatever. And then these mini Bic lighters, I actually keep a couple of these in my pack, one in my first aid kit and one in my mess kit. So, you know, primarily I use this to start my stove, but if in an emergency I had to start a fire, then I have a couple of these to make heat. So then I also take either a full travel size pack of wet ones or these little individual wipes. And you can buy these individual wipes at minimus.biz, probably other places as well, but you can buy as many as you need and just take the individual wipes if you want to. Typically I end up bringing these wet wipe travel things. So, you know, these will last a really long time and not dry out as long as you keep them sealed. So there's 20 wipes in here, and for a 2-week backpacking trip, that's plenty. But I use these as a bath in the evenings when I'm in the tent and before I go to bed. I'll just take a couple of these and wipe myself down, and that is my bath in the evenings when I'm on the trail. Very helpful. Sometimes, but not always, I'll take a few of these. These are little towelettes that if you add a couple of drops of water, they expand. This is my gear repair kit, which I usually will stuff into my first aid kit. These are aqua tabs, and you know, there are a number of different water purifying tablets that you can get. I don't use these on a regular basis. I do filter my water and pretty much only filter my water. But there are instances where the water is pretty nasty. Cows have shit in it. In those instances where I'm not so sure about the water, I'll use tablets and filter it. So I just keep a few of those in my first aid kit just in case. Now, things that I used to take that I don't anymore. I used to take these cold pack, these little mini cold packs you can get at minimus.biz. But I used to have a lot of issues with plantar fasciitis, and I've discovered that was from running, not backpacking. I stopped running for almost a year, and the plantar fasciitis went totally away. I don't have any issues with it when I'm backpacking now, so I leave these at home now. But when I was having really bad issues with plantar fasciitis, I would take one of these in case it got so bad that I could hardly walk, and then I would have a cold pack for it. I used to take a thermometer, and I don't anymore. I just, you know, usually I can tell if I have a temperature, so it's not really necessary. I think that's pretty much it. You know, this is probably more than what I really need to take, but I feel pretty comfortable with this kit. I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I've never needed anything else, and a lot of this stuff, you know, I put in my kit and end up not needing on a trip, but I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So, you know, for me, this is a pretty minimal kit, but it does the trick, and so far so good. If you guys have any questions about this, let me know in the comments, and if you have any comments about what you bring or what you have found to be completely unnecessary, feel free to drop those in the comments as well. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.